Welcome to Friday night's video in our second master series. I do believe this is the 53rd video in our second master series and the second video on basic processors. And we are going to start with the equalizer. So we're going to talk about a couple things to help you get ready for the short segment on equalizers. Now, the first thing I want to talk to you about equalizers is that, first of all, graphic equalizers are great. You know, this is one that comes with my computer system, AU Graphics EQ. It's just a simple graphics equalizer that is normally been used in, audio, working with home stereos and things like that. But they can, be functional working in the studio. I don't normally recommend them, but I do have like this simple one that I can work with if I need to in certain situation, which is rare at this point, but it's not out of the question. They're band equalizers, and each one of these nodes is going to work on a certain band and bandwidth depending on how the equalizer is set up. So what we're going to talk about is that being that quote-unquote next level master audio engineer is focusing on parametric equalizers. Now you can get semi-parametric equalizers and things like that, but I just don't fuss with them too much. There's a couple EQs I have in my DAW that are set up that are semi-parametric and are not parametric equalizers that can do certain things, but there's not really much point to it. That no matter how many bands that your equalizer has, that if you need more bands you need more bands in a parametric EQ, that you can put them in series. So, I mean, it's not like it's a big problem to put a couple of them in series if you need to, depending on how intricate or detailed of work you're doing. So I recommend, first of all, to becoming that next level master audio engineer is that you focus on your parametric equalizer and get really familiar with it and use it for the tasks of whatever you're doing. On most parametric equalizers, you'll have some side on the low side and the high side that can switch between peak and shelf EQ on either end of them, and also that you're going to have a low cut and high cut EQ with different slopes. And those are going to be basically your meat and potatoes of what you need to get done and should cover just about every aspect of what you're trying to do. Now, there are different EQs. I have like my EQ from Ozone. This is a different one. Let's look at these EQs here. This is my equalizer from Neutron. That's an isotope product, and another one from Ozone. And it's another equalizer. Now, this equalizer's got a few more parameters to deal with. So we'll address them because a lot of these kind of things, I mean, like this one is trying to deal with it as far as analog or digital. It does some other type of things, and it's got different algorithms that are going to shape whatever the parameters that you've chosen to work with can shape them differently with different type of formulas and different types of algorithms, which depending on how finite or how kind of delicate work you're doing or how familiar you are or what type of an advanced audio engineer you are can have an impact on what you're trying to do. But for the most part, I mean, I've got a couple of them there. For the most part, my normal equalizer is the one I focus on because most of the time I'm focused on a couple different things. I'm focused on, if you look at my last master series on equalization, it'll give you a pretty good understanding of how I look at the equalizer and the things that are going to be most important to you besides things like automation. So there, I would suggest you go through and watch that short segment in my first master series on equalization to get a really good basic understanding of how I normally equalize, sometimes to lesser or more degrees depending on the production or what I'm working with or if I have to start doing automation and stuff like that, but most of that was addressed. because this is your meat and potatoes equalizer, and you're going to be doing a couple different things with it that we're going to talk about in detail, besides just the parameters, which we'll talk about first, and their functions and things like that. Then we'll get into applications and some other things. First of all, we'll talk about the equilibrous contour after I get done with this video, because it's going to have the biggest impact on your productions, understanding how I try to relate the equilibrous contour as far as the equalization of your production, and it will become very apparent why. The next thing we get into is, besides parametric EQs, there's a couple other type of equalizers that are very cool. And these equalizers are dynamic equalizers. These can be immensely helpful, because when you hear somebody talk about, let's take a catchphrase from the industry, trying to make things transparent. Okay, this catchphrase and this catch-all phrase that is caught on in industry sometimes is a little bit hazy. The concept that I relate that to something like a dynamic equalizer is it's not static. Okay, so that if I decide I'm doing a cut or a boost or anything like that, that it's paired with basically an upwards compressor expander or a downwards compressor, so that it is actually causing a more transparency, and also it will boost in certain areas a certain amount with upwards expansion, compression, and or downwards compression or expansion, which is a whole new application that can cause you to really take a much deeper look at your equalization, besides the things we're going to talk about, and we're going to get really deep into it so that you can become that next level, or quote unquote master audio engineer as far as an equalization, because it's probably one of the most important aspects of your production that happen during your production in any phase. If your equalization is not done well, you can fuss with it till the rest of your life. It is never going to come out sounding like a top-notch production without you being that quote-unquote next-level master audio engineer as far as your equalizers are concerned. But this tool can do a lot of cool things. It can really bring that, that aspect of that transparency. And it not only does it, like, I've got a bass end, a prime example is I got an upper end that, I've got this rumbling that's coming in, but it's not, if I do static EQ on it, it's just cutting it out. Rather than just like a compressor that, between a limiter and compressor, with a limiter on the EQ, it's going to hit this spot and it's going to stop it right there. It's static. It is not letting it move. With a compressor, that it lets it hit it and go beyond it a little bit. Or it either pushes it down a little bit, it compresses it, or it'll actually expand it up a little bit, let it shoot up just a little bit for certain applications, which can be, to sit here at this moment on this first video and get into it, there's a lot of applications that can be quote unquote your opinion of what might be happening, or helping your quote unquote opinion or reach the level of equalization you're trying to achieve and the transparency you're trying to achieve. And also it can have a lot to do with just giving that static equalization of, I went here to this EQ and I've decided that this equalization setup for this is set. That's all it is. Now, there's no leeway or give on that in any way, shape, or form. It's static. But on my dynamic equalizer, that it can be either compressing it down a little bit and kind of pushing it a little bit, or it can actually be boosting it up just a little bit and giving a little bit of a push, sometimes just, a little bit. You have in the low end or in the high end or some other area that just a little bit of push on it is going to give it exactly what it needs. And it's like, oh yeah, dude, I fussed with this and I've messed with this, and it just give it a little push there, or a little punch down a little bit, and you're kind of compressing a little bit, and it's not static equalization, which adds a whole new dimension to life to your production. Depending on how good your dynamic EQ is, it doesn't life isn't static, right? It's like it just isn't. Things move around, flow around. There's give, there's push, there's take. Things move around. It's like, does that make sense? Most things aren't like an iron bubble that nothing can escape of expand or contract or nothing. Whereas a dynamic EQ can add a little breath of life into your equalization is the best way to put it, which is great as they become better and better and better, that it can add new dimension of life into your production, getting real familiar with your equalization and your dynamic equalization and learning that concept and applying that concept can really help take you to that quote unquote next level as a master audio engineer in using your equalization. Now, there's other ones, like I've got this TDR Nova. This is a free one. I haven't upgraded or even used this one in a long time, but it did some really cool things. And for a while, I really fussed with it until I got my dynamic EQ from Ozone. And I've got a couple other ones, but these are just some basic ones. And when I say other ones, let's clear this up really quick, that sometimes certain processors and their programming and the algorithm they run through can be just like a piece of hardware and affect a piece of audio a little bit differently, and is audible that it is affecting it a little bit differently. And so that can sometimes has caused me to go pill out another different piece of software like compressor, or expander or EQ or something like that. But most of the time I try to get things that do that as little as possible, and it's just performing the algorithm that I want and not coloring the sound in any way, shape, or form. So really keep that in mind. So in the next video, we're going to talk about the equal loudness contour and its applications and its importance as far as you as an engineer, when it is valid, when it isn't, and how useful it is and how underrated it is in the audio industry to help make your stuff that quote unquote next level master audio engineer sounding productions. But these are the equalizers we're going to focus on that I think are going to be most important to you. And if you master them and that's not enough and you want to fuss with other type of equalizers for certain things, more power to you. You're a digging audio engineer and might find some new thing that does some different thing and da. Cool, no problem. Master these first to where you are a master audio engineers with these tools, these equalizers. And if you accomplish that other stuff is you playing as an audio engineer, trying to get something different or cool or something like that, which is cool because you'll understand all the concepts that are happening. You'll have no question about the concepts, and any other EQ, unless you come out with something really new and advanced that's not going to blow you through the wall, and have you sitting around going, duh, what's going on? And also, be real careful of the equalizers that are just doing it for you. They are coming out with some things that's automated. Now, everything that's automated is an opinion. So if you go get online and find out how many opinions there are about how something should be equalized, I can take a Whitney Houston pop production, give it to 100 different master audio engineers. It will come back equalized a little bit differently. So those are always going to be questionable. Be real careful of those kind of things and any other type of software we're talking about or processor, because that is inherent in the algorithm and you want to be careful of that, because that is an opinion, and it may be an opinion of the industry at this moment or an opinion of some individual in the industry in this moment, so it's very hard to rely upon those. So these are the ones we're going to focus on, and our most important one is our basic static EQ and our dynamics equalizer that can breathe some life into our production, and mastering these two basic processors to help take us to that next level as a next level master audio engineer with our equalization. So peace, hope, love. I hope you enjoyed this next video getting into our equalizers. Get out a couple equalizers like this and get ready for the next video when we start talking about the equal loudness contour, and then move on to the equalizers themselves, talking about their parameters, what they do, and then talk about what they can do for us in our production to take our stuff to the next level. Peace, hope, love. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you in the next one.